In 1953, the average American family spent 22% of their income on food. For millions of working-class families across the South, the Midwest, and the hollows of Appalachia, even that number was out of reach. They ate differently. They cooked differently. They stretched $1 into a week of meals using techniques and ingredients that have almost entirely vanished from the American table. Number 7 on this list was once the most common weeknight dinner in the country. Number 3 was served in school cafeterias, church basements, and every farmhouse from Georgia to Iowa. And number 1, the meal that kept more American families fed during the lean post-war years than any government program ever did, has been almost completely forgotten. These dinners fed a nation. Then we threw them away the moment we could afford to. Before we start, hit subscribe. What you are about to see might just make you pick up the phone and call your grandmother. Number 15. Bread and milk. Before cereal came in a box, before granola bars existed, before anything was processed and packaged and shelf-stable, there was a bowl, a few slices of day-old white bread torn into pieces, and warm milk poured over the top. Sometimes a pinch of sugar. That was supper. In rural homes across Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia, this was the meal that appeared at the end of the week when the money was gone and there were still mouths to feed. Mothers called it a poor supper. Children did not know the difference. The bread swelled soft in the warm milk, turning the whole bowl into something close to porridge. A loaf of bread cost about 16 cents in 1952. A quart of milk was 21 cents. For a family of 6, this was dinner for under 50 cents. Nobody talks about it now, but in 1,000 old farmhouses, this was the taste of getting through. Number 14. Fried bologna sandwiches. Every working-class kitchen in America kept a roll of bologna in the refrigerator. It cost 30 cents a pound in the mid-1950s and fed a family for days. But fried bologna was not something you threw together cold. Mothers cut thick slices, made 2 small notches in the edges so the meat would not curl, and laid them flat in a hot cast-iron skillet. The bologna blistered and browned at the edges, swelled in the center from the heat, and filled the kitchen with a smell that brought children running from 3 rooms away. Served on white bread with yellow mustard and a slice of government cheese, fried bologna was a proper hot meal. Not an afterthought, not a snack. Dinner. Men ate it after long shifts. Kids ate it before school. There was no shame in it because everyone was eating the same thing. Number 13. Macaroni and tomatoes. This is not mac and cheese. This is not pasta with marinara. This is something older and more honest than either of those things. Cooked elbow macaroni, drained, tossed back into the pot with a can of whole-peeled tomatoes broken up by hand, salt, pepper, and a spoonful of bacon grease. That was it. The tomatoes coated the macaroni in an acidic, savory sauce that tasted nothing like anything from a restaurant. Brighter, plainer, more filling. A can of tomatoes cost about 12 cents in 1955. A box of macaroni was 9 cents. This fed 4 people, with enough left for lunch the next day. Every Southern grandmother made this. Church cookbooks from Georgia to Mississippi listed it without measurements because everyone already knew how it went. Today's home cooks replaced it with jarred pasta sauce and never looked back. That is the loss nobody notices. Number 12. Potato soup with fatback. On farms across the rural South and the Ozarks, potato soup was not a starter. It was the meal. Diced potatoes simmered in water with a chunk of salted fatback until they softened enough to break apart with a spoon, thickening the broth with their own released starch. Onions went in early. Salt and pepper went in at the end. A splash of canned evaporated milk turned the broth creamy without any butter or cream. Fatback cost about 8 cents a pound. Potatoes came from the root cellar or the garden. This dinner cost almost nothing and filled every stomach at the table. The fat from the pork floated in small golden pools across the surface. Children dragged cornbread through the broth until the bowl was clean. Nothing was left. Nothing was ever left. Number 11. Salmon patties. Before tuna became the default pantry protein, canned salmon was the affordable fish that stretched across working-class kitchens nationwide. A tall can of pink salmon cost 25 cents in 1954. Mothers drained it, pulled out the larger bones, mixed the flesh with cracker crumbs, egg, onion, and a spoonful of mustard, shaped it into patties, and fried them in a skillet until golden on both sides. The outside crisped into a thin, crackling shell. The inside stayed moist and pink and almost creamy. Served with creamed peas or stewed tomatoes and a wedge of cornbread, salmon patties were a Friday night supper that felt like something you would order at a diner. Children who refused to eat fish ate these without a second thought. The recipe lived in every women's club cookbook from 1940 to 1965, then disappeared almost entirely when canned tuna got cheaper and salmon became a restaurant item. Number 10. Hamburger gravy over mashed potatoes. Gravy that stretched a little ground beef across a big plate of potatoes. Farmers called it poor man's steak. Mothers called it hamburger gravy. Children just called it supper. Ground beef browned in a cast iron skillet with diced onion, a spoonful of flour stirred in to coat the meat, then milk poured over slowly until the whole thing bubbled into a thick, pale gravy with beef throughout. Poured over a mountain of mashed potatoes. Ground beef cost 43 cents a pound in 1956. A 5-pound bag of potatoes was 29 cents. This fed 6 people for under $1. The gravy soaked into the potatoes so that every bite carried both. It was heavy, filling, and deeply satisfying in the way that only food made of starch and fat can be. This appeared on dinner tables from Montana ranch kitchens to Detroit tenement apartments. It has no elegant name. It needed none. If you are finding this as moving as we do, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. There is more American food history coming, and you are not going to want to miss it. Number 9. Chicken and dumplings. In the Depression, a hen too old to lay was too valuable to waste. By the 1950s, stewing hens were still the cheapest chicken you could buy, about 15 cents a pound compared to 35 cents for a fryer. Mothers simmered them for 2 hours until the meat fell from the bone, and the broth turned golden and deeply rich. Then the dumplings went in. Not the rolled, flat southern kind, the dropped kind. Spoonfuls of flour, baking powder, salt, and milk dropped directly into the boiling broth, where they swelled into pale, tender clouds that absorbed the chicken flavor from the inside out. The whole pot thickened into something between a soup and a stew. This was the meal that appeared when someone was sick, when a neighbor had a death in the family, when the weather turned cold and nothing else would do. It was care made edible. Number 8. Pinto beans and cornbread. Across the mountain south, this was not a side dish. This was the meal. A pot of pinto beans started the night before, soaked, then simmered all day with a ham hock or a piece of salt pork, seasoned with nothing but salt, pepper, and thyme. By supper, the beans had broken down at the edges, thickening the pot liquor into a rich, dark broth that tasted nothing like anything from a can. A cast iron skillet of cornbread baked while the beans simmered. You crumbled the cornbread directly into the bowl. You ate from a single bowl. In parts of Kentucky and Tennessee, this dinner appeared 5 or 6 nights a week for families who could not afford anything else. The beans cost 8 cents a pound. The ham hock was a scrap the butcher practically gave away. This meal built generations of Americans who worked in coal mines and textile mills and never asked for anything fancy. They did not need fancy. They had this. Number 7. Creamed chipped beef on toast. The military called it something unprintable. Civilians called it SOS, and they ate it without complaint. Thin slices of dried, heavily salted beef were torn into strips. These were the kind sold in small glass jars for 35 cents. They were stirred into a thick white sauce made of butter, flour, and milk, then poured over white toast. The saltiness of the beef seasoned the sauce with no extra effort. The toast soaked up the cream gravy and turned soft beneath its weight. Every veteran who came home from Korea or from World War II had eaten this for breakfast on a base somewhere. They brought the recipe home because it was fast and filling. Mothers who had fed families through rationing recognized it immediately. It appeared in American home kitchens throughout the 1950s as a weeknight supper, a quick lunch, or a Sunday breakfast. Today, it appears nowhere, except in discussions of military nostalgia. Number 6. Beef liver and onions, pan-fried. Beef liver was one of the most nutritious foods an American family could put on the table in the 1950s. It was packed with iron, vitamin B12, and protein, and it cost about 20 cents a pound. Butchers had more of it than they knew what to do with. Mothers sliced it thin, dredged it in flour, and laid it into a hot skillet while onions caramelized alongside. The liver cooked fast, 2 minutes aside. Any longer, and it turned tough and bitter, which is why a generation grew up hating it. Done right, it was mild and rich, the outside golden and slightly crisp, the inside still faintly pink. The onions went over the top in a pile, the whole thing resting in pan drippings, served with mashed potatoes and green beans. A complete, nourishing meal for 30 cents. We stopped cooking it because we could afford not to. The nutrition did not go anywhere. The knowledge did. Hoppin John. In the low country of South Carolina and Georgia, Hoppin John was not just food. It was tradition, superstition, and survival compressed into a single pot. Black-eyed peas cooked with a smoked ham hock, then tossed with long-grain white rice and seasoned with salt and a pinch of red pepper. The rice absorbed the smoky, earthy broth from the peas, and the peas swelled until they split at their centers. The whole pot tasted of the South in a way that is almost impossible to describe to someone who did not grow up eating it. Eaten on New Year's Day, it brought good luck. Eaten on a Tuesday in February because there was nothing else, it brought dinner. Black-eyed peas cost 7 cents a pound in 1954. Rice was a pantry staple. This pot fed a large family for next to nothing and left them full. Today, Hoppin John appears on restaurant menus as a Southern specialty. In the 1950s, it was what poor families in the Carolinas ate to stay alive. Number 4. Scrapple. This is the one that makes people flinch. Scrapple is what Pennsylvania Dutch farmers made when they slaughtered a hog in November and could not afford to waste a single piece. Pork trimmings, organ meat, and head meat simmered in water until the flesh fell apart, then were mixed with cornmeal and buckwheat flour and seasoned with sage, thyme, and black pepper. It was poured into loaf pans and allowed to set firm overnight. The next morning, the loaf was sliced a 1/4 inch thick and fried in a skillet until each side turned deep mahogany and crisp. It was served alongside fried eggs, with a drizzle of maple syrup or a spoonful of apple butter. In Lancaster County in the Delaware Valley, this was the breakfast that launched working men into fields and factories. A loaf cost about 18 cents and lasted a week. Today you can find Scrapple at a handful of specialty butchers in Pennsylvania. Everywhere else, it has been forgotten entirely. Number 3. Split pea soup with ham. No other dish in the American poor man's kitchen stretched as far as a pot of split pea soup made with a ham bone and dried split peas. Dried green peas cost 9 cents a pound in the mid-1950s. The ham bone came from whatever was left of Sunday dinner. Everything else, water, onion, carrot, a bay leaf, came from the root cellar or the garden. The peas dissolved as they cooked, thickening the soup without any flour or cream, turning the broth a pale, earthy green. The ham bone released collagen as it simmered, giving the soup a body that coated a spoon and warmed a person from the inside out. You could feel it working. Children who refused to eat vegetables ate 2 bowls of this. Mothers made it on Sunday afternoon and fed the family from it through Tuesday. The whole batch cost about 30 cents. No meal on this list gave more for less. And yet, it has nearly vanished from American home cooking, replaced by a canned version that tastes of nothing in particular. Number 2. Tomato gravy over biscuits. Tomato gravy was the weekday staple long before sausage gravy became the celebrated star of the Southern breakfast table. Bacon grease in a cast iron skillet, A spoonful of flour stirred in until it turned the color of a paper bag. Then a can of whole tomatoes crushed in by hand and a splash of water to bring everything to a simmer. Salt, black pepper, and a pinch of sugar if the tomatoes ran too sharp. It was poured thick over split homemade biscuits. This was breakfast. Sometimes it was also supper. The tomatoes gave the gravy an acid brightness that cut through the richness of the lard biscuits beneath. Canned tomatoes cost about 12 cents in 1955. Flour and lard came from the 50-pound bag stored in every southern pantry. This gravy appeared on tables in Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Tennessee on nearly every morning except Sunday. It has all but disappeared. Number 1. Bean soup. This is the meal that kept more American families alive during the lean post-war years than any government program ever did. Not a specific regional version. Not a named variety with a memorable story attached. Just dried beans, whatever kind was in the pantry, simmered in water with an onion, a bay leaf, and whatever scrap of cured pork was available, cooked until the beans broke down and thickened the water into something that could sustain a family through a long winter on almost nothing. This meal appears in every American oral history of poverty from the Great Depression through the post-war years. In Appalachian mining communities, in Dust Bowl farm towns, in urban tenements from Chicago to Cleveland. In the sharecropper shacks of the Mississippi Delta, bean soup was what kept families alive when everything else ran out. A pound of dried beans cost 8 to 10 cents throughout the 1950s. It fed 6 people for 2 days. Nothing in the American kitchen has ever done more for less. And nothing has been more thoroughly erased by the convenience economy that replaced it. We traded this meal and everything it represented for canned soup, frozen dinners, and the comfortable amnesia of a full supermarket. The families who made it did not have that choice. They made it because they had to. They made it well, and they fed their children. Those children grew up and forgot it existed. This is the meal we should remember most. Here is the challenge. Make one of these this week. Try the salmon patties, the hamburger gravy, or the tomato gravy over biscuits. Make something your grandparents made without a second thought and come back and tell us whether it was as bad as you thought it would be. These were not consolation meals. They were the real thing. Drop which one you are going to try in the comments. If you have not subscribed yet, do it now. Because these were not just dinners, they were a way of life we were sold out of.